Good evening, everyone. It's February 24th, 2025. It is now 6:30. Prior to starting our regular council meeting, we do have the Fiddleville Nonprofit Housing Corporation Board meeting tonight. So we will commence that first. So I do call that meeting to order. Obviously, looking around the table, we have achieved quorum. So with saying that, that now takes us to any conflicts of interest. Does anybody have any conflicts? Being none, we'll proceed on. This will now take us to the County of Dufferin operational review. So I'll hand it over to you, Trevor.
Thank you for having me. Just as we mentioned in our last meeting, we had an operational review. It behooves us not to take all these items that were directions to the board. I sent out the list today, just summarized the 10 directives. Did all the board members get that? Thank you. Okay. So I put them here. We'll just go through line by line because some of the things I need you to approve or just to be verified. I do want to point out that this review was from 2021. It started in October 2022. It was on hold until May. In October 2023, it was signed off as complete, and then 6 months later we received it. So we missed their deadline of June 30th to have this completed, but Bayshore amalgamated this year and it was a very busy year. So anyways, the first item there is the direction. We needed to update our corporate records of the 2 new board members that became councillors at the last election. So we have to get a corporate key. We have to work through a lawyer. I put here, we're starting to use an online platform called GovernWell that will be able to do this for us. So I just want the board to be aware that we are actively trying to get this done, just updating who the board members are for the Ontario Corporation return. The next one is that they want a corporation profile report. Again, that can't be completed until we update the new board members. So as you know, you become a board member of Fiddleville when you become councillors, and we need to update that. But there's a bunch of kind of legalese to it. It's not difficult, it just needs to be done. The next thing is the board will provide corporate status documents. Again, so those 3 things all tie together, but I want you to know we are actively on it and should have that within 2 weeks, hopefully. The next item is provide the County of Dufferin with a table of contents, a list of the bylaws and policies. There it is, complete, for you to be aware that we have that completed. The next one is the board of directors are to meet at least 4 times per year. As per the service standards. I did indicate this was the year they took into question was 2021, when it was the worst year of COVID, no more than 4. We were doing online meetings. Apparently in 2021, we only met 3 times. We met at least 4 times every year as our requirement since then. So just passing that on, like I feel like we're meeting those requirements. But again, this is 2021 year we're talking about 5 years ago, 4 years ago. This is a big one. Provide a current and written agreement with a property management firm. So we have a contract with you now. It's not an evergreen. It's a month by month now. So we did it for 3 years. It's sort of like a lease. It's month by month. We get a percentage of your revenue. So right now we should be updating that management contract. And that's one of the angst from the County of Dufferin. But I think we're all aware, at least the unofficial plan is in 2 years to when the mortgage is completed, is probably to hand this back to Dufferin County in some capacity. So, you know, I'm just looking for a direction whether you would give me permission to write back to the County of Dufferin and say, at this point for the next 2 years, we're satisfied with this month-by-month contract. It has a 30-day out on it. You can fire us without cause, give us 30 days notice. You know, like it's outside the norm, but I do think that the intent is that in 2 years, things will change. Can somebody, yeah.
Was quite month to month. Might as well just do it, and when someone is over, that Dufferin County and Bayshore got it.
Under the Housing Services Act, we're supposed to tender every 3 years, and that hasn't been done.
Questions? Which have been cut off as well.
So do we tender it then?
No, I think we continue to do the month by month and then avoid the tender. The tendering issues.
Yeah.
So with that, do we need a motion?
I'll move it.
Seconded by member Bernardo, seconded by member Fegan. All in favor? So Trevor, we'll continue with the month by month method through to end of mortgage point. The next 2 years.
Thank you. Okay. Again, you need to give me that direction, which I appreciate. The next thing is that similar, provide a competitive process. So at this point, I mean, Dufferin could disagree with that, but will that them respond if they're unhappy with that? I don't think they will be. There's one here, ensure fully and completed signed tenancy agreements are included in the file. Obviously, they found 1 or 2 files that had, we keep them on site. So our policy is always to keep signed tenancy agreements. I will indicate that, there must have been an exception there. And again, it could have been a COVID year, a 2020 application, and it was a little odd that year. Let's just put it that way. Provide a copy of the capital plan. So I did send out today, the county did a building condition assessment. That's a real summary plan, but that does give us a 5-year capital plan. Again, our mortgage is up in 2 years. Did anybody get a chance? Like, my permission would be to ask to submit that as is. It's a draft plan, for them to have any, feedback on it.
Does anybody have any questions?
Pretty simple. I looked at the big items that need to be done.
Yeah, the only item that I looked at, when you look at your capital investment, you go into a negative in year 3.
Yep.
So as from a budgeting perspective, in year 1, you have the $100,000 set as your special needs capital.
Yes.
So as far as the capital plan, should we be setting the 200,000 in year 3 under a special needs so that you're not going into a negative? Looking at your capital planning.
So that is coaching money, that $100,000 this year they're providing for the parking lot. And that really is to identify, the county would like to know that, so that when I say, what do we need in the future? I'm going to say the highest priority is the domestic hot water risers need to be completed. And that may be a high guess, the 200,000, but it does trigger for them to say, that would be the one we should be asking for.
Right, so I clearly see that it's in the list. Just looking at your bottom line, where you are funding said investment, you go into that negative. That's why I'm curious as to why we don't have the 200,000 on that line item. So that you're not
put that in
in a
there
negative balance.
I can put that in there with an asterisk, but it's subject to the county's approval, if you know what I'm saying. Like,
I 100% understand.
okay, so I will change that with a friendly amendment to add $200,000 with the hope that we get that money.
It allows everyone to plan accordingly.
Okay. And then the last one was simply all future maintenance contracts be signed by contractor in Bayshore. And that was relating to an elevator contract that appeared to be not be signed by Bayshore, which again, our standard is we always would normally do that. So we will correct that certainly going forward if it happened again. And this was really the only things we needed. So then I can send this back to the county and hopefully bundle this up.
The motion to approve that?
I would assume so.
Do you need a motion to approve the operational plan?
Yes, please.
Moved by Dan. Seconded by Len. All in favor? That carries.
That's all we
So
have.
you do have, correct. So if we look onto the next item on the agenda, there's new business. Do you have anything that covers under the new business category?
Nope.
So that then brings us to the date of our next meeting.
Traditionally it would be about April or so. So do we want to set a date, somebody's calendar for late stage of April?
Is April 28th.
And that's okay with you, Trevor? April 28th?
Yep. Donna is also on the line. She'll correct me if I'm wrong.
And there's nothing else. Then motion to adjourn. Moved by member Sample, seconded by member Wagner. All in favor? Okay, thank you, Trevor. We look forward to seeing you in April.
Thank you. Bye now.
Okay. That now puts us back in line for our regular council meeting. So again, we'll call that meeting to order, and we'll begin with the singing of the Canadian National Anthem. Again, we'll begin with our land acknowledgement. So we would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Shelburne resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, Chippewa, and the people of the Three Fires Confederacy. These traditional territories upon which we live, work, play, and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions. And it is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. So I now invite any member of council to disclose pecuniary interests of any of the general natures. You may declare that now or at any point throughout the meeting. That now takes us to the adoption of the minutes. So we have the minutes from the February 10th. We have a mover and a seconder, moved by Len, seconded by Dan. Any discussion? All in favor? That's approved. Now it takes us to public question period. Do we have any questions from the public?
Good evening, members of the council, the mayor, staff. My name is Randa James, and I live at 132 First Avenue, Shelburne here. So my first question refers to section 4 of the agenda, item 2.1. The presentation by Julian Foreman Devonish regarding request for the creation of exemption in the bylaw for provincially licensed development. In reference to the recommendation that the above noted presentation be received for information. This is an inappropriate response to the hearing request. Mr. Devonish is making a specific request to amend the zoning bylaw, for which there is a planning process, with an application and an associated cost. He submitted his request prior to the previous council meeting, but no one appears to have told Mr. Devonish that there is a process to do this, nor did he refer to the town planner, who would be able to explain to him what would be required to do this. I would also anticipate that the essence of his request would be that this minor change to the zoning bylaw be undertaken at no cost to himself. It should be noted that falconry is ancient art that requires a deal of time, effort, patience, and expertise to successfully accomplish a positive outcome. It is a rare and special set of skills and requires a special person to undertake such a task. The town of Shelburne should fully support and accommodate this valuable historic use to the full extent of their ability and be proud to do so. I am certain that the members of your Culture and Heritage Committee would support this if asked. Most residents do not understand the workings of municipal bylaws and regulations, although the supporting documents that Mr. Devonish has provided shows that he understands which bylaw needs to be amended and has gone to the effort so far to provide the original bylaw which permits this use. As a former municipal planner, I would submit that Mr. Devonish has provided significant information for determination to be made by council in order for them to direct the town planner to undertake the necessary amendments to the town zoning bylaw and the official plan should that be required to permit this unique and important historical hunting and conservation practice as requested here. Given this preamble, my request to council is, instead of receiving the presentation for information only, are you required to support this request from a member of this community for an amendment to the zoning bylaw to permit this important use by requesting the town planner to undertake all of the steps required to accomplish this task today? Further, are you also willing to waive any and all fees associated with this amendment to the zoning bylaw requested by Mr. Devonish as a show of support for this ancient art being preserved within our community? Further, if you are uncomfortable with supporting this request today, are you willing to schedule this item on the agenda for the very next council meeting and provide a specific motion of support with direction to the town planner to undertake the amendment process with Mr. Devonish? If not, why not? My next question, would you like to
I'll respond to that
that?
first. Yes, I'll respond first.
Please.
So again, as per council procedural bylaw, and that bylaw is 15-2019. Section 26.2, subsection H, just gonna note what it says in the following. So immediately following a presentation, the chair will determine if further action is required and direct staff to prepare a report for consideration by council. If no report is required, presentations will be noted and filed. So to note, staff do not provide recommendations to council in regards to presentations or delegations. Accountability and transparency require that council complete the review of the presentation material and then make a decision post-presentation. It is not within the preview of staff to assume what the decision of council will be. Receiving that information is just a standard recommendation. So once we go through his presentation tonight, then as council will make that determination and decision. Thank you for that question. The next one.
Moving on, section 6, item 1.1, report P 2025-01 from the town planner regarding Shelburne Town School subdivision final acceptance of town works, and item 1.2, report P 2025-02 from town planner regarding Emerald Crossing, Shelburne 89 Development Limited, subdivision final acceptance phase 1. My concerns are very similar for both these items. These reports are clearly template form responses that provide the bare minimum of information for council to provide the required positive response for the recommendations. Unfortunately, it appears that the town planner has neglected to understand that council is a forum open to the public and residents of the town. These documents do not seem to address the potential concerns or questions that the town residents and or owners of properties within these developments or owners adjacent to this development. I believe that a higher level of detail should be provided in attempts to address any questions or concerns that might arise from the community or those directly impacted. Why does the planning report for Shelburne Town subdivision, which references registered plan number 5A, Schedule A, not include any plan? A plan for reference should be provided, particularly when a block 7 is referenced for exclusion, but the location is unidentified. In contrast, the Emerald Crossings Phase 1 planning report includes a general servicing plan. Why would a general servicing plan not be included for the Shelburne Town subdivision? Regardless of the scales of development and the need to identify areas of exclusion for Emerald Crossing, although the Shelburne Town subdivision also has areas of exclusion, these plans allow the public to understand the specific areas which would require inspection for the purposes of assumption, which should be public knowledge, particularly to owners within these subdivisions. Why would the actual registered subdivision plans referenced in Schedule A of both reports not be provided for clarity? As we're all aware, there is a significant snow cover outside, and the snow has been in place for months, which begs the question of when were all of the inspections done, in particular the final inspections by the developer's engineers and the town engineer. When and how long were the maintenance periods and what components of the developments were included in any maintenance period? For the Shelburne Town subdivision, under financial impact in the planning report, a portion of the securities is to be retained for the landscaping and work within Block 7 until all the requirements have been met. This is extremely vague and does not allow any clarity as to when all of the work within the subdivision will be completed. What landscaping is being referred to? Maybe a landscape plan identifying this should be provided. What work within Block 7? If not a plan, even a description of the outstanding work would be better than nothing. What portion of the securities is being retained? How is this amount determined? Is it a standard formula, such as a percentage? Is it a cost estimate for all the outstanding works? Or cost of living increases taking into consideration for future works? As above, there appears to be a general lack of clarity to the specifics of what has been done and when in relation to the Emerald Crossing Phase 1 subdivision. It appears that final acceptance of Phase 1 may be somewhat premature for, and I quote the planning report analysis, subject to receiving the following items remaining under the subdivision agreement: the required statutory declaration, the required as-constructed drawings and documentation, CCT video inspection reports, and certification of acoustic fencing to the satisfaction of the town engineer, a contingency deposit for curb repairs and for rectifying any final landscape deficiencies within the stormwater management facility block. There are also additional exclusions identified. Under the consultations and communications section in both planning reports, any public notifications and consultations should be listed with dates for greater clarity and general awareness purposes. Why would this not be provided? I think by now you should understand that a higher level of detail should be provided for public consumption in order that the residents have a greater understanding of the development processes and to provide some answers to potential questions. Inquiring minds want to know. Thank you.
So with regards to those, obviously our planner is here tonight. You understand that those items are on the agenda, so
Yes,
we'll certainly go through that once we get to that point in our agenda.
all right. Thank you. Appreciate you very much.
Do we have any other questions? Were there any other questions submitted? Okay, that now takes us on to presentations. So we do have a presentation by Julian Wanlin Devonish regarding request for creation of a in the bylaw for provincially licensed falconers. Welcome.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Julian Walmart Devonish. I'm a licensed falconer, practicing for pretty much a lifetime, but a license holder of 2 years. I'm here to advocate for an exemption to the municipal bylaw by provincial law. Falconry is a regulated heritage practice that dates back centuries. As a licensed falconer in Ontario, I have to be licensed. I engage in responsible wildlife management, conservation through my business, Rolling Hills. Sorry, a bit nervous. The current municipal bylaw has falconry and raptors under exotic pets, which I would like an exemption to. Recognizing falconry as a historical hunting and conservation practice under the Ontario Heritage and Hunting Act 92. Provides environmental benefits such as pest control, requires extensive training, licensing, and strict adherence to the regulation. As I stated before, Ontario Heritage and Hunting Act 92, Section 1, subsection 1, a person has a right to hunt and fish in accordance with law. Section 1, subsection 2, includes Fish and Wildlife Conservation Act of 1997. The Fishery Act, Canada, and the Migratory Convention Act of 94. Falconry is a recognized tool to engage in these activities in a legal practice. The current municipal law restriction, section 11-1, exotic animal regulation, no person shall keep or cause to be kept an animal listed on the attachment Schedule B. And in that section, it states the animals that can be kept and not kept in the township. And hawks, eagles, owls, and falcons are on the list of being prohibited to keep. Bylaw outstands a building or structure unless it's in the animal's enclosure. Orangeville, allows people to, falconers to keep their falcons in town. They have written in the exemption into their bylaw, which I had happily provided. Do I need to go over that?
No.
No, we've got all your presentations.
Can I ask another question? Have you guys all went over the?
Yes.
Yeah, we read it
Can
all.
can you go into questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, but I'm really.
We're all good.
We're just regular people, don't worry.
So I've got a quick question for you because having been on council for a while, we did allow at one point for racing pigeons to be kept in housing within the town. When you keep falcon, you keep them within a specific housing, where do you practice with them?
It will either be underneath my deck, which I have a raised deck, if you know some of the houses in the subdivision over there, the decks are raised. I have plans, engineered plans that to be able to build a module aviary to fit underneath that.
So fully enclosed,
It'll be fully enclosed
same as what we did with the pigeons.
and well, I don't know about the pigeon, what the pigeons have. With the Ministry of Natural Resources, they have a requirement for me to keep the hawk or eagle or so on and so forth. It is 8x8 enclosure, one window, and has to be double doored.
That's fine. The second part of my question was, where do you practice with them? Where do you take them out to practice?
I have a property which I have permission to use out on Second Line. I also have one in Wellington that I have access to. If weather or so on and so forth does not allow me, we fly them using acryons, which is a long tether
Right?
Yeah.
with a weight,
I've seen them on.
with a weight, which allows us to control the bird.
Yeah.
But beyond that time of training, your bird should be able to come back to you if your weight management is done properly. That when you release your bird, at the call of a whistle, it should return to you.
Okay. Fair enough.
How many raptors do you currently have?
I own none.
Okay.
I own none.
That's a
I
surprise.
work with two. They are kept with Hawkeye Bird and Animal Control, which is a good friend of mine, and he also runs the bird and animal control, which I subcontract for him.
Okay. So you would have 2 on your property then, if you were to bring them with you?
Two at most,
Okay,
right? One like my work bird and one that I would like to train up for my falconry practice as to go out and hunt.
right, okay.
Now, will I keep 2? Probably not,
Okay,
as one is
I know.
more than enough.
So your basic request is just to be able to change the bylaw to be able to house them in town,
Yes.
but your training will still be outside of the town limits.
Yes. I mean, what is the concern of saying if I go to Fiddler Park, which is a wide,
That's why I'm trying to understand.
which is a wide open area, still in town,
Right.
still within the town boundaries. If I want to fly my hawk at Fiddler's Park, may I ask what the concern would be on that?
I'm asking what you're asking for.
Okay.
That's what I'm asking, I'm not asking if, so you're training, so you wanna be able to train within the town limits too? Somewhat.
Yeah, somewhat.
I think if the weather's bad, they're going to which it generally is in the winter.
Well, it's just, there's a lot of stuff going on in town with development and.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't wanna see the stuff that we're doing in town and your bird gets damaged or hurt, you know what I
No,
mean?
no,
So-
no, as a licensed falconer, we always go and scout the area that we fly. Right, it's, if you're flying a falcon, as you know that a falcon can reach up to 300 kilometers an hour on a scoop.
Yeah, so that's.
Right, and that could run into a hydro line, that could damage your bird,
Yes.
right? Now, a small hawk, like what I fly for my birdie, Gneisman, a Harris hawk, is gonna fly soar maybe 100 feet. And is gonna be watching me literally like a hawk.
Yeah.
When I reach into my pocket and pull out its little timbit, it's gonna be right there.
Within, let's just say that you wanted to fly your hawks at Fiddle Park, I love hawks, in fact, I've got a tattoo of one on my back, to be honest with you. The question, and I'm just gonna play devil's advocate here for, I know questions may be coming up, so if another citizen had their dog, for example, a very small dog at the dog park, or cats, what kind of concerns would they have in regards to a hunting bird? Is there a chance that the bird may go?
1%.
Okay.
There's a 1% chance. You train your bird to target the prey that you go after. A bird, yeah, may not be the smartest thing in the world, but as a bird of prey will look at what it's stooping into, right? Big risk, little reward. Big risk, reward. Right now, sorry, it might be the opposite way around, but if I take a red-tailed hawk, which is wild, you see them sitting on telephone wires everywhere. In nature, they're eating small varmint. They would more likely hunt mice than go for a squirrel. And very unlikely, unless they're really, really hungry, to go for a rabbit. Because a rabbit can damage a hawk and a hawk knows that risk.
So, quick question, interaction with other people in general for the park, what is the risk there?
Zero.
Zero, absolutely zero.
Absolutely, positively zero. Unless the other person in the park
Has the.
has that one gauntlet over.
Again, playing devil's advocate. I know,
It's
very
zero.
little about.
I have went and picked up the hawk that I've worked with to bring home so that I can have it overnight to bring up north with my family on outings. And I have tried to have my daughter fly it.
Right.
And it will pass my daughter and come and sit on my head. Well, my daughter had the timbit in her glove.
So watch your head then.
Yeah.
I had to look what I love.
So as far as what we have in here is just a recommendation to receive. I don't necessarily get that overall feeling. So I would say that we refer this to staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To report back to council. Yes, so instead of just a receipt.
Yeah.
If you get a mover and a seconder. Moved by Len, seconded by Kyle, all in favor? That carries.
When can that take place? Early April?
Probably the end of April.
Alright, it's better than nothing. But, okay, okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
okay.
Takes us to council inquiries. Do we have any inquiries tonight?
This is for Jim, sidewalks. I know today's been pretty mild, Jim, and, snow melting. But there's a fair amount of snow still left on the sidewalks. It's quite a bit. It's very hard to walk on. Are we still plowing the sidewalks at any point in time to at least try to get some of that scrape off?
Through the chair. Staff is back on with the plows on the tracklesses to knock the snow down that's left on the sidewalks that was packed in. We did have to switch to blowers. The blowers, again, similar to the plows too. The plows do get more closer to the concrete itself. The blowers right up a little bit, so they leave that little extra bit of snow, but we couldn't plow it up one side of the bank and then right back into the sidewalk again. So we did have to go around with the contract blower and contract trucks, remove the snow from the boulevard, push it all out, and carry on that way. So they are continuing with that now, but the warmer weather has worked out nicely for us, so it is breaking it up along with the sand salt mixture put down, so staff is still working away on that.
I'm trying to see if anything on. So where the snowbanks have been cleared, the sidewalk is, the trackless are clearing the sidewalks. Where it is not cleared, they're not clearing the sidewalks because there's got no room to put anything, right? That's what you're basically saying.
Yeah, through the chair, some places where the blower went through town, they have been over everything now in town. They are gonna have to revisit some spots that had snow come in after the fact, and they have plugged up again, so they still will be in town for a while yet. But yeah, that did free it up, that we can get the plows back out there now and start getting the grade down to the concrete itself, so.
I guess in the area I'm in, maybe the blower needs to go through because something, wind is probably blowing back in again as well as what's blowing, going down, and it's melting, and like I said, it's extremely difficult to walk.
Mhm. Yeah, and they're still catching up, and it is gonna be some time yet,
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
but they are meeting minimum maintenance standards, even with all that snowfall and other municipalities declaring significant weather events, we were able to keep up with that with our staff
Oh, yeah.
and the
Oh,
contractors in as well.
I appreciate everything that staff has done, along with the fact that I've seen all of the hydrants that have been cleared, which is a tremendous amount of work that had to be done to do that. So, you know, my appreciation will be passed on. I was just wondering if time was all.
Thank you. Another one for Jim, unfortunately. I did take a quick drive through when I didn't drive.
Gonna say.
In the subsequent there, that's just a little bit north of Home Hardware. I always forget its name. But the boulevards looked still quite full, like and it was kind of spilling down into the roadway. So I haven't gone through there since yesterday at about 6 p.m. So can you just give a little update? Are the boulevards cleared today? Or is it gonna be cleared? Because they're really, really high and full. In that
Through the chair
subdivision.
again, yes, they were through there on the weekend, and they really did put the hustle on this weekend. The amount of snow that we have in our snow dump area now is 3 times what it was late last week, so it's pretty remarkable that way. But there are some areas, depending on the time of day, if it was overnight, when nobody's on the streets or overhanging driveways, that was great. During the day, it's a little more difficult, and the bylaw can't be everywhere right with them all the time, so there are some areas that are still protruding out a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of like the main, when you first come in off of 124, like when you come down that stretch, and then you turn in order to kind of make your way over to Fiddle Lane or whatever over there. All of those streets were still like full,
Mhm.
so I
There,
was just.
there are some constraints that we have there too, just with what they call street furniture, so Bell, Rogers,
Okay,
Hydro, that sort of stuff. You have to work around it, you can't just plow through it.
gotcha.
Unfortunately, we have caught a few of those, but when you're into that sort of action, that's the possibility you could have there too, so.
Okay, so just, we are still acknowledging that area kind of is being worked on, it's just.
There are some areas to retouch in there, but they were in there substantially last week. I know there was numerous complaints from residents wanting us to plow out their driveways. Some people thought that we actually do that as part of the municipality.
Right.
New residents that have moved in. So I think it's been a learning adventure for residents, kind of a reminder of the old winters that we used to have, and then just not being used to it. Because even in my time at Shelburne, I haven't seen this amount of snow, so that was a new one for me. And we have, with our contract trucks in, we figure it's about 1,500 loads that are now removed out, and we still do have more snow.
Still do more, yeah. Okay. All right, thank you so much.
That was actually done on the weekend down in that area. It
Well, I
was
drove
not-
by yesterday. Yesterday was Sunday. So
Yeah, it was,
last night at 6 PM and
They
all,
went last night through there.
so after 6 then.
Yeah, and there's, it's,
Okay, because that's what I said, I'm like, that's why I said the time, because I said, if it's been done since then, awesome, but when I went through at 6, it was still quite full, like a
Yeah.
lot, like, you know,
they went down to the park late last night as well. And, Old Village Lane hasn't been done, park hasn't been done yet, so.
yeah, I was
Yeah,
just
south
done
of
on
that is
William
where-
before
yeah.
I came here, like
Yeah.
literally just done, so. I know that they're still out there, I just wasn't sure if they hit that area, because it looked very, very full.
Yeah,
So-
our area is pretty full.
Probably should clarify too, that we did go with priority intersections first. So
Yes,
the
of
higher
course.
traffic road with an intersection that's
Corners.
compared to sightlines,
Yeah.
it got precedence over the rural subdivisions, or
Of course.
fortunately some of our unassumed subdivisions, they were ones that were done this weekend as well, so Fieldgate and Highland as well, so.
Okay, all right, great,
Any
thank
other-
you.
Any other questions, inquiries?
Just one quick inquiry. On coming out of Robert Street, the snowbank that the nursing home has created on the one side presents a bit of a sightline problem to the north when you're waiting for
Yeah.
traffic to come down William Street.
That's true.
It's quite high, quite big.
It's over the,
It's gotta be almost 11 feet high.
yeah, it's over the roof now. My kids are like, can we go play? And I'm like, no.
Through the chair, honestly, I wasn't up there myself today, so I don't know, I'll take a look at that, but yeah, we'll check into that one tomorrow, if it's an issue, we'll make sure we get a service request started with Jamie through operations.
Yeah, it just presents a bit of a sightline issue coming, with cars coming from the north on Robert Street. You have to pull out into the intersection to make sure you're clear.
That's all, then we'll move on to items on the agenda. So first up will be report 2025-01 from the town planner regarding Shelburne Town's Viscone subdivision for final acceptance of counties. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the council. Two reports on the agenda for tonight. I'll go through P2025-01 first and then pause for any questions. So at this stage in the development, the subdivision work has been completed. This is the development located at the west end of First Avenue and Second Avenue. There are 33 townhouse units within that development. The townhouses have all been constructed and have been occupied. You may recall from the past number of years, consultations and reports related to this development that internal to the subdivision itself, all of the infrastructure, the road, the stormwater pond, the fencing, the retaining walls, the drainage system is all condominium. And so the reason I didn't include a copy of plans 7M80 and 7M81, which are the subdivision plans for this development, is that there's no work to be assumed by the town within that development. One of the benefits of a condominium style development, although it's within a planned subdivision, all the infrastructure is in fact private. Condominium board has been established, condominium corporation has been registered, and it will look after in perpetuity all of that infrastructure inside the development. The reason for my report tonight is, having consulted with legal, is that under the subdivision agreement, we did stipulate that for the work that the developer performed outside of the subdivision, on First Avenue, on Second Avenue, on Gordon Street, and to the west across the former rail corridor on John Street, Although those are existing roads, they've been assumed under the town's maintenance and ownership for many years. The developer did some work in those roads. A bylaw is required to actually formally bring those into the municipal operations responsibility. So the purpose of the bylaw is simply to acknowledge that, and the maintenance period, which is 2 years minimum on all of that work, has lapsed. So the work was completed between 2021 and 2022 actually. All of the inspections with respect to this work, and really any work to be assumed by the town, happen when the weather allows a proper inspection. So usually that's before October 31st and after snow melts in the spring. In this case, the inspections were done over the course of the development, so over those years, but most recently in the summer of 2024. And some I think went as late as in October of 2024 as well. I do have a letter from the engineer, SBA Engineering, confirming that they're satisfied with all the work. There are no impacts to the residents on First and Second Ave and Gordon Street and on John Street, because in fact, all of that work done on those roads has been done for many years now. It was done, again, between 2021 and 2023. It's been operating, the roads have been open to the residents. So the assumption itself does not change anything for any of the residents in the area. All it means is that if there's a problem with the water main in First Ave, or with the stop signs at First Ave and Gordon, or with the sidewalk on Second Ave, or the drainage system on John Street, those are the works that we're talking about here. If there are any problems with that prior to assumption, the developer is responsible to go and fix those problems. After assumption, so after this bylaw is passed and final acceptance certificate is released to the developer is no longer responsible, the town takes over. Now, again, for residents, there would be no visible difference, because all they would ever see is a contractor going to make those repairs. In some cases, this might instead be the operations department. The town has maintained those roads through the winter, throughout this whole process, so there's no change in terms of winter maintenance. So I just want to emphasize again, the development is done, it has been done for several years. The reason that there's no public impact is that all of the work has been in place for some time now. And again, nothing being assumed within the development itself. I did want to mention as well that there is one more block of development as part of this subdivision. It's the block right at the corner of Main Street and Gordon Street. That is subject to the subdivision agreement as well. There are no municipal works within that part of the development either. It's part of the condominium. But it has followed after the north part of the development. So it's still under construction. So this report, the reason that block 7 is referenced is just to clarify that that block 7 is not part of this final acceptance. The only final acceptance that will come with block 7 is there's a bit of work that they've been doing on Gordon Street right at Main. And again, the reason for that is the driveway entrance into the development on block 7 is off of Gordon Street. So there were some utility connections as well, and Enbridge Gas was in there. You may recall the road was closed for a short period of time. I didn't get into the details of what's included in block 7 in this report, because all of that was addressed years ago when we had all the public meetings and consultation and notices. Again, I didn't provide the details of all of that because that occurred from 2011 to 2021. There were 10 years of history on this development with respect to the first public meetings, the zoning application, the plan of subdivision, the plan of condominium, the subdivision agreement when it was before council. There's been many reports. They're still on the council agendas that are available online. I know there have been some questions tonight about this report and the level of information provided. I'm happy to follow up with more information to the resident with that information, or point to where that's located on past agendas. But I didn't go to the extent of summarizing all that, because the intent of this report, again, is to formalize the town's takeover of the work that was done within existing municipal roads, and not it's not a process, art in a process that's subject to public consultation, public notice, and those types of requirements of the Plan Act. All that was done years ago during the planning stages of this development. I would point out as well, this is consistent with the level of information that's usually provided to the municipality for this type of activity or municipal assumption. In fact, in many larger municipalities, what will happen is this type of report and bylaw would go into what they call a consent agenda. It would be rolled in with, maybe a dozen other reports, and in one motion, the council would sign off and say, these are all approved. And that would go through. So with that said, I wanted to make sure, we don't have these types of assumptions all the time in a smaller community. So I wanted to make sure I provided good information to council about this and that it was understood from here forward. This would be a town obligation to look after any repairs with respect to those specific works in those existing roads. And maybe as a final point, there was a question about the plan reference. Specifically, you'll see in the bylaw we refer to the legal description of Elizabeth Street, which is actually First Avenue, Station Street, which is actually Second Avenue, and plan number 5A, which that plan number 5A is not the plan of subdivision that we're talking about. That's part of the legal description from the original plan way back decades ago that created those roads. Again, those are existing municipal roads, and that's just part of the legal description. The purpose of including the reference to that plan in the bylaw is to clarify that these are the specific roads we're talking about within Plan 5A, that the municipality is taking over the assumption of the works that were performed by the developer within those road rights of way. So not including a copy of the plan because it's quite old, not including the subdivision plan because it's not the work within the actual new subdivision that's being assumed. I didn't want to create any confusion with respect to what's being assumed as part of this by including those kinds of plans. Well, with that said, I'm happy to follow up with the residents and provide specific location details of where this work was installed as a part of this development. All of that is also detailed in the subdivision agreement, which again is available on past council agendas. So with that, there's a bylaw ready for council's consideration tonight for this specific report. It's bylaw number 06/2025. If council's happy with proceeding with the passage of that bylaw, again, we would make sure that all of the final acceptance requirements have been addressed and then issue the final acceptance certificate with the clerk's signature when all of that's in order. That would also allow the securities, which is the letter of credit provided to guarantee the works, that those would be returned to the developer as part of that process. I mentioned block 7, again, there would be a holdback of some of the security for block 7, simply because block 7 is still under construction and that wouldn't be released until that block is complete.
Any questions? Okay. Walter moves the motion. Is there a seconder? Okay, Glenn? Sure. So I'll read it out first. Be it resolved that the council of the town of Shelburne receives report 2025-01 regarding the final acceptance of the town works related to the Shelburne Town's Stones Development subdivision, and that the leave be given for the reading and enacting of bylaw 06/2025, being a bylaw to authorize final acceptance of the town works completed as part of the Shelburne Town's subdivision, plans 7M80 and 7M81, and authorizing staff to issue the final acceptance certificate. All in favor? That carries.
I can't believe they used the original name of the street. The town was created back in 1850, whatever.
Well, and because of that, every new survey that's created still has to show that. So even the new plan of subdivision shows that those were originally named with those old road names.
Those were the names of the daughters of the family of our town father.
So that now takes us to the second report, which is 2025-02 from the city planner again regarding the Emerald Crossing development.
Yeah, so this one is more of a traditional subdivision final acceptance or assumption report. And tonight I have Nick Caracas from the developer from Shelburne 89 Development or Creelgate here with me as well in case there are any questions. In In this case, I think you're all familiar with the large subdivision development that's been underway for the last 3 or 4 years at the corner of, to the northeast of Highway 89 and County Road 124. Again, this is another subdivision that the planning stages date back many years. So I think it was in 2017 when we held the public meetings and gave public notice, and subsequent to that, there were reports about the draft plan conditions in 2018 and the subdivision agreement and the blocks that came forward since then, block 216 with the big commercial plaza. There's another site plan under development with block 217 across the road from that, across the street from the McDonald's. And then there's one more block, block 215, right along County Road 124, which we've had pre-consultation with the developer on that. And so there will be future public notice and consultation if and when an application comes forward for that block. But for now, this is really just to address the first phase of the development. All of the homes in the entire development, both phases have been built. There are 4 that remain unsold, but all the units have been built. All of the inspections have occurred throughout the construction process. Again, those inspections occurring in the good weather window. The reason this is coming forward now is that once the inspections are complete, there's a lot of documentation that needs to go back and forth between the developer and the town's inspectors. And that occurred over the course of the fall. And so now that we have that information, we're coming forward with the final acceptance recommendation. You'll see attached to my report, there's a map indicating the area of the subdivision. It's the south area that is the subject of this specific recommendation. There will be a further report and bylaw to come forward for the north part when that's complete. Those roads were paved and that infrastructure went in on a different timeline than the south part. And so those roads and infrastructure will be under maintenance for longer. Everything to the south of that though, which is shown in the map in my report, has been in place for over 2 years. And the only exception to that is there's only a 1 year or full winter requirement for the surface asphalt. So the surface asphalt went in the fall of 2023. It's been in for a full year and a few months. It's survived the first winter, and so it was inspected again in the fall to make sure there's no major issues with it. The one item for which a deposit is recommended, and this is pretty common, this has happened in prior developments, including Summer Hill and Greenwood Village, there's a bit of curb repair work needed on Ojibwe, which is the main entrance road going in. Of course, it can't be done now, so the town would hold a bit of a deposit for that work to make sure it gets done. We know this developer isn't going anywhere because they have that whole second phase to get assumption for later on. And they also have a commercial block still under development, and that block 215 still to come. So we're confident that that repair work will be done. Worst case, if we needed to rely on the deposit, the town could go in and do that work itself with the developer's money provided. You'll see a hole in the middle of the phase 1 area, which is kind of hatched out. That's where the park block is and where much of the topsoil storage was provided, and that's also where the sanitary pumping station is located. The sanitary pumping station is under maintenance by the developer for a few more months. And the park block is under maintenance for a few more months as well. So it would become a part of the assumption of phase 2 later on when further inspections and monitoring of that has been done. So that pole would remain the responsibility of the developer in the meantime to maintain and fix any issues. The town, however, has been monitoring and working with the operations of the sanitary pumping station. And so we're not expecting any issues there. The only other kind of unique aspect of this one is sometimes the stormwater management facility won't be assumed until all phases of the development are complete. In this case, though, the stormwater pond has been fully landscaped and complete for more than 2 years. Everything is looking good as of the last inspections last summer and fall. So we have no hesitation in recommending that be assumed by the town. However, the only footnote to that is if the developer were to do something in their construction activity or otherwise that would damage the stormwater pond, through muddy water or something like that, that would require the developer to come back and fix that. So the town would continue to monitor it. It's the same approach as any stormwater pond owned by the town throughout town. We get a deposit from the developer if they do something in their development that's incorrect and it damages the storm pond. Even if the towns assumed that many years ago that they would be responsible and come and fix that. Kind of like tracking mud on the roads or other things like that, where the developer is responsible to clean all that up if they cause the mess. So I think that addresses what I wanted to summarize for that. Again, I didn't go through all of the public meeting dates and consultation and notices that occurred in the planning stages for this development, but I could provide that information to the resident separately if needed. And again, the bylaw is ready for council consideration tonight. We've recommended a few minor conditions here on this. So the reason for bringing the bylaw forward tonight is to allow that this would go forward and we would release the final acceptance certificate only once we have the remaining items, including the as constructed drawings. Nick and his team are working on all these things. The final CCTV, which is video of some of the underground infrastructure. It's already been videoed once in past times, so this is just the second video. And the statutory declaration, the standard document that's required for any assumption. And it's just a matter of when we get it, it should be any time. And then the contingency deposit for the curb repairs, as I mentioned. So with council's blessing tonight, that it would allow staff to release the final acceptance certificate once all of those documents are in place. So if you have any questions, happy to try and answer them at this point in my presentation.
Any questions? Do we have a seconder? Moved by Walter, seconded by Sample. So again, be it resolved that the council, the town of Sheldon receives report 2025-02 regarding the final acceptance of the Emerald Crossing subdivision, and that we be given for the reading and acting bylaw 07/2025, being a bylaw to authorize final acceptance of phase 1 of the Emerald Crossing subdivision, plan 7M79, authorizing staff to issue the final acceptance certificate upon receiving the required statutory declarations, as constructed drawings and documentation, CCTV and contingency deposit for curb repairs, and rectifying any final landscaping deficiencies within the stormwater management facility block. And that the requirements to provide a surveyor certificate for the entire subdivision prior to phase 2 final acceptance. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. That now takes us to report FS 2025-03 from the Director of Financial Services regarding the 2024 development chart year-end report.
Thank you. And through the Deputy Mayor, this is just the annual report that council is used to seeing every year that we have to provide to the ministry. It shows our starting balance for 2024 and our ending balance, of which we took in $1.2 million and spent just over $4.5 million. Other than that, this is your standard regular report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions? Seeing none, can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Kyle, seconded by Lindsay. Again, I'll read it out. Be it resolved that council receives report FS 2025-03. That council receives the 2024 development chart schedule as presented and circulated. All in favor? That carries. Do we have any notice of motion? Seeing none, that takes us to communications. Does anybody have anything they'd like to pull out? Walter?
Number 4, correspondence from the gentleman on rollerblade hockey.
Mine too.
Yeah, well, yours too, like, maybe. I think it's an excellent idea, to be honest with you, and I agree with him. It does provide exercise. It's another form of exercise. I'm not sure, I gather they need paved areas or whatever to do it on. I don't know how many we have that's available to them. I'm just wondering, if we can get a staff report back maybe on how many areas we have that we can actually do this on and whether this league can actually go forward.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it go forward, but
Yeah, because that was kind of my concern as well, was where it could be facilitated, right?
Yeah.
Because you know, when we put up hockey rinks in the winter, it's fine, because we utilize areas that, you know, generally aren't used in the winter, right? For example, the basketball courts at the park, but in the summer, they're the basketball court. So it's not like we could use that, you know, surface, and then you know, we have the pickleball courts and tennis courts, obviously, but again, that's used, right, in the summer. So I just wanted to make sure, I guess, that we maybe send some information back to him or something of that nature on sort of how the town operates with regards to you know, clubs. Cause I know he was kind of requesting a partnership, but I don't think that that's our generalized stance, is to be a partner. You know, we would obviously help to facilitate it, but, you know, we have to stay sort of Switzerland, I guess you could say, and, you know, we have an obligation to any of the soccer club, basketball, baseball, all that, right? So, we don't operate those as a town. They're just, you know, they're operated from other areas, right? So I think that's where I was a little worried too, that it's like he may be feeling that in order to do this, he needs to sort of have a partnership with the town, and I think that's, yeah.
and I guess the other thing is rollerblading used to happen inside the arena.
Yeah,
The ice surface, so
yeah,
that is one possibility that he may have to go get a board and make the request there to get time during the
exactly,
summer and
Yeah.
at the arena.
Yeah.
But if there's
which
any
isn't
outdoor
something the
ones,
town can
Yeah.
facilitate, right? That's a board.
and
decision.
some of the other areas outside of town maybe can, if there are any available, that's the question for practices and whatnot, I don't know. Or whether if he's creating a club, you may need practice land as well.
Yeah.
Maybe that also could be facilitated within the CDRC, so.
I was just gonna say that, the rollerblading does require a smooth polished cement surface to play on. And I do know that the arena has some underutilized times in the summer.
Yeah.
In lacrosse and ball hockey. So I think that we direct him there for access to surfaces
Exactly.
and playing time. I mean, the rest of it, as far as organization, it's
That's his.
technically on him, yeah.
That's his problem.
If I sit on that CDRC board, that was going to be my recommendation that letter be forwarded up to the CDRC.
Yeah.
See what we can kind of do.
Perfect.
Yeah, as far as my experience with rollerblading, more as a spectator than the participant. And you've got the inline versus the older style.
Yes.
They're all held on indoor rinks, so.
Yeah.
You know,
It's tough on the road services, especially with pebbles and stones and
I'm like, I roller skate,
debris, you know what I mean?
stones.
So it's tough to hold that without sweeping the roads ahead of time,
Yeah.
so we should direct him to the CDRC, I think, so.
There's no way we're gonna have them club playing on the roads. Though you do see some kids in the summertime doing their hockey playing on the roads with rollerblades.
Yeah, but not a full organization.
No, not a full organization, no, that's it.
So, again, the recommendation for this would be forward on to the CDRC.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we really need we shouldn't do
I
anything
think we
for
do.
that since Dan used it on it?
No.
As do I actually.
Yes, you do.
Are there any other items under, again, communication?
Just a general comment about the letters from different municipalities in regard to tariff and support for them and support for municipalities to, you know, write their MPPs and MPs and there's a bunch of them there. So I mean, we can blanket those and once they're going, okay, there's this one and this one. At least 4 that I counted.
So you wanna do something beyond what we've already done?
No, just, unless you wanna do support for the, like, for example, supporting the Hanover one, number 3.
We've already.
We've already done- I know we've already sent our own letter out, but. Okay.
It's just good to see other counties coming,
Municipalities
yeah, like
doing it.
following our
Yeah.
somewhat lead and doing the same thing.
Okay.
See, after the election, there's been many problems, just gonna.
Yeah,
So seeing that, can I get a move or a second for receiving? Moved by Dan, second by Lindsay. Then be it resolved, the council receives the items listed under communication for information. All in favor? Carries. We do not have a closed session this evening, so that takes us to the confirming bylaw. I get a mover and a second for that, by Walter, second by Len. All in favor? Carries. And then that takes us to adjourn. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Moved by Kyle, seconded by Dan.
I'm not even making eye contact.
Carries. Thank you very much.